Yo, Munir.
Hello,
Yo, Munir. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing? Oh, look at that. Toy sponsor in effect.
JB, Jason Blake, in effect, showed up at the door.
Ah,
I didn't get a text. I got tracking emails. I knew it was coming. But big shout out to Jason Blake, Kidrobot, representing with the Warhol banana bookends. Look at those blue ones. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Is that like maize and blue? Is that a
Oh,
Michigan thing?
that's funny. I mean, Warhol was more Pittsburgh, so I don't know. Really, the
You're
fact
going to
that
have to tell me.
the fact that the bananas are yellow and black is because, Pittsburgh Steelers.
But yours are blue and
Ah,
black.
he moved to New York.
Yeah, that is a very New York vibe, isn't it?
Um, so I'd love to know what you were up to last week, Rob. What did you do last week?
Thank you for asking. Poof, I should probably take notes on what I do because by the time we get to pressing record on these bad boys, I've kind of started thinking about my following week,
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense,
of course, of course.
Um, but it was a very good week. It got
Hmm.
cold. So and it was the first week back after Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And so, to be honest, Monday morning was hard. Not hard from a get to work standpoint, more philosophical.
Oh,
As we enter December
okay.
and we enter the end of the year, uh, on my walk, I was really focused on the meaning of life.
Oh,
Yeah. And it by the time I was done with the walk, it's about an hour 20,
you'd solved the meaning of life.
essentially. Essentially. But it was like at 1 hour 19 minutes. It was like at 1 hour 19 minutes. It really took the majority of the walk to get to a place where I was like, oh, I have clarity.
Oh,
I have clarity. And something interesting happened. I was fed a story that said 10 more effective ways to help your heart than walking.
okay.
And so I started playing games with Google Discover. Google Discover, not everybody has Google Discover, but if you open up a Chrome browser
Okay.
on Google on your mobile phone,
Yeah.
Google will feed you suggested stories.
Oh,
And it's called Google Discover. And one of these stories was this, top 10. One of the headlines, because they change, was top 10 most efficient ways. And I was like, we have to be more efficient than walking? Now we're what did you call it? Over
over
engineering or
optimization, over
over
optimizing.
optimizing.
Yeah.
If I didn't have an hour 20 of that walk to get to 1 hour 19 minutes to find
Right.
that clarity,
Right.
my 30-minute bike ride, which one of the recommendations was cycling,
Yeah.
which I like to ride a bike, but
Sure.
I wouldn't have gotten to 1 hour 19 minutes,
Right.
which was the point of clarity that I needed.
Right.
So miss me with efficiency sometimes, please.
I think this is something we've talked about quite a bit. The aspect, and we've talked about the white space,
Yeah.
and I think it was Heidi Bianchi, harkening back to past guests, who suggested that events need white space. And white space is that moment where it allows for clarity, because without providing yourself the time, like you're saying, and clearing of the mind, you don't get those aha moments. It's like, standing in the shower. People get their ideas in the shower. Why? Because they have been, ruminating over these things, and the shower is the only time where they only have one thing to do, like get clean.
Pardon the pun, but this podcast has been a wonderful exercise in understanding how we are all connected.
Oh, good. I like that.
And we keep coming back to Ken Gibbs, to Heidi Bianchi, to our guests. And had we had this podcast or not, we do that in the course of our daily lives with each other, with the stories that we tell at work, at home. We reference experiences that have happened to us in the past that form the foundation of who we are, what our thoughts are, and then ultimately how we choose to move forward.
Yes.
And so to change some of those habits or experiences to serve us better, we have to practice. We have to practice new habits if we want to create new habits. Like walking for me is a new habit. So I have to be really intentional. And if you look at my LinkedIn, in my bio, it simply says enthusiastic.
Yes.
That takes a lot of practice. I realize not everybody wants the level of enthusiasm that I can bring to the table, but that also means I have to be self-aware and be able to read a room and to understand when that enthusiasm is valuable and when it can be overbearing or too much. That also takes practice. I've been on a very big keep practicing kick, which is how I've been signing off some of my comments on LinkedIn. But that's how my week was, Munir. Thanks for
That's
putting this all together.
fantastic, Rob. I appreciate you sharing with me.
Yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. Tell me, first week back from Thanksgiving?
Yes, my first week back from Thanksgiving, I went on the road. I've been on the road for a week. I went to a fantastic education conference, the UPCEA or UPCEA, University Professional Continuing Education Association, MEMS conference,
Is
Marketing and
that
Enrollment
where
Management.
the 6 week AI tutorials at MIT certification courses would fall under such a thing?
That is absolutely correct. These are individuals that long ago, this organization has been going or has been around for a bit, and the MEMS conference, Marketing and Enrollment Management Services Conference, has been around for 30 years, I think. And this started with people doing continuing and professional development courses in person usually, and then because online was thought of as distance education, online all came under that conference. And so the distribution of knowledge, and then over time, as many things in this life evolve, it evolved into also thinking about, well, what happens next? So those short courses that you're talking about, as well as talent development. And, so what happens when we talk about talent development and societal issues, because education becomes a societal thing. And you last week spoke to me about the cost of education that came up. You spoke to me last week about what the value exchange was. You stated some stats that absolutely came up on stage and in sessions and in programs. We talked about some college no credential last week, and that came up at this conference. Student debt, all these things came up. It was very exciting, though. On the optimistic side, I'm by nature an optimist. I think we, the happiest guys on the internet are optimists. So we look at these these things that are disruptive as opportunities instead of, oh my gosh, the sky is falling, which I think will play into maybe some of our later conversation. And it was energetic, even though some people were faced with problems. They were faced with structural issues from the federal government. They were faced with declining enrollments. They were faced with a demographic cliff in the U.S. But I still got this sense of vibrancy from the group, and I was trying to promote that sense of vibrancy out, that enthusiasm out to my people. And then I took a quick trip out to Pittsburgh with my co-founder, and I was energized by being in the new city and a couple great meetings and just a chance to connect in person was always valuable. And we got to talk about some of the things that we think about. Again, thinking about that future forward, what happens in the future, and how do we do things that are going to be exciting and engaging. So yeah, really good. And then here I am, and I'm back on the road.
Well, I will say, speaking of things evolving, as part of our show, we have something that we need to talk about, and that is the evolution of Netflix.
Oh yeah.
And then there's something that I'm going to read you, and maybe something you might read me, and then we'll wrap it up. How about that?
I think that sounds fantastic. I also think we should take 2 seconds and pause and let everybody know that I'm Munir Haddad. I am a marketer. I am the co-founder and CEO of Kiosk, and I am excited to talk about media, technology, society, and how they all interrelate.
And I'm his brother. Oh man, I want to talk about those things too. And my name is Robert Haddad. I'm unprepared to tell people what I do. Still the piece where you get me. And for years in our relationship, you would encourage me to be able to articulate essentially my elevator pitch, who I am, right? What's my brand? We all should have personal brands. And I get stumped on that every time. So I'm Munir's little brother, Rob, and I'm here to talk about the same things.
I think, Rob, you talk about all sorts of different things, and I can feed you the line, but that's not going to be honest.
Yeah, yeah,
But we'll
yeah.
get there.
No, we'll get there. We'll get there. I'll work on it for next week. How about that?
That sounds good. I surprised you with that one.
You know what's interesting? This is not something that we planned for today, but I do want to call it out. You are on Mark Griffin's podcast,
I was in Mark Griffin's podcast this week.
and I listened to it on my drive. You asked me what I did.
Yeah.
I listened to it on my drive to Montclair, New Jersey, beautiful Montclair, where I met two friends, Dominic Cotter and Don Hine, who I have known for 27 years.
Wow.
However, we only worked together for 6 weeks.
Amazing.
So we were loggers,
Mm-hmm.
which for most people out there, we weren't lumberjacks. We were videotape loggers at the NBA, at the National Basketball Association. In fact, at NBA Entertainment, which used to be located at 450 Harmon Meadow Boulevard in Secaucus, New Jersey. And myself, Don, Dom, and Steve On, who at one point would become my roommate and coworker at Major League Baseball, were videotape loggers in the summer of 1998. I started on Memorial Day. I was offered the job, let's say Friday
Mm-hmm.
of Memorial Day weekend, and they said, you can start Monday. And I said, I'll be there Monday. And I show up Monday, and my boss is like, what are you doing here? It's Memorial Day. And I said, you said to start Monday. He's like, oh, well, I meant Tuesday. And all I could hear in the back of my head was Sean Kelly, who was a freelance editor at the NBA at the time, and my teacher in high school. I've talked about Sean before, and a mentor. And he was the one who got me the interview to have this opportunity. He said, if they ask you to work on the weekend, you work on the weekend. If you have to miss a wedding, you miss the wedding. And all I could hear was Sean's voice. And I was like, well, they asked me to come in on Monday, and it's Memorial Day. show up.
Yeah.
So I showed up. And my tenure in 1998 was from Memorial Day to July 4th. Because on July 1st, they announced that they would lock the players out because they didn't come to an agreement on the 1998 CBA, collective bargaining
Yes.
agreement, which governs how the players and the owners relate to each other. And so in those 6 weeks, we built enough of a relationship such that 27 years later, we were the three of us, myself, Dom, and Don, getting together for dinner in Montclair. And it was a great, great evening. So I just wanted to shout them out and shout out that experience. I was very grateful for that opportunity.
I feel like, without you meaning to do this, you have raised a very interesting topic that was not on our schedule. But I don't think I can let that go because this is an entry-level job for human beings who have made a 27-year connection that is no longer existing because the AI does it for you.
Right. I never explained what the role was. So the role of the videotape logger was to literally watch NBA games and within a software, write the time code at which a notable play happened. And notable play really means any play. You take this for granted now. If you go on ESPN.com and you do play by play, it describes every play that's happening in the game. It's from timeout to foul to replay to anything that's going on in the game is being transcribed. This used to be a manual process. And just prior to us joining in 1998, people were doing this by hand on legal pads, and you would see the folded up yellow legal pad paper slid into the cover of a
3/4
Beta
inch tapes.
SP or 3 to 3/4 inch tape. Absolutely. Absolutely. And there were many shoots when I started Major League Baseball. Shout out to Heather Mitchell. Many tapes with Heather Mitchell's handwriting, and you would know who the field producer was by their handwriting. It wasn't Heather's name on the shoot notes, but the field notes would be slid into the shoot tape that you'd pull it off the shelf in the library, and there was no barcode scanning at this time, so you had to make sure you put it at B2, and you pull the tape off and you're like, oh, what does this say? Let me go find Heather and find out what she meant, right? Which made continuity really important, right?
Oh yeah,
So if that producer wasn't at Major League Baseball anymore, then you were kind of stuck.
that is amazing.
Really.
And yeah, now what happens with the dislocation of labor and the loss of that continuity? And yeah, I mean, some would argue that it was a meaningless job because it was very, you got to write, well, very important, but manual labor, right? That could and has been automated, but provided you with the foundational understanding of then what became production and editing. Because by watching, you learned how to shoot, angles, what a meaningful moment was, how to describe that meaningful moment, and then later how to find it.
You would have production assistants, editors, associate producers, and producers all interacting with you because you would have your name associated with the log and the entry. So if you wanted to know why somebody logged something a certain way, you knew who the logger was.
Yeah.
And so Sean or Trevor Rivera or Alvin would come up to us and say, hey, man, why did you log it this way? You missed this shot. Or that shouldn't have gotten 3 stars, because you would also rank it too.
Oh,
you would want to
okay.
call the attention to the PA who was searching for a highlight that this thing happened during this time.
Yeah.
Now think about how subjective that is too,
Oh, yeah.
where it just depends on who the person is that was watching these. And so It created a really amazing alumni group as well.
Yeah,
The people who were loggers just before us were production assistants.
right.
Many of them have gone on to do many interesting things. Um, and it was also the same summer that they shot the Bulls 98 film, and they shot on film. And it was those shoot elements that we were logging that would eventually become The Last Dance, which was the notable Bulls 98 Michael Jordan ESPN film that was released in April of 2020. That took 22 years to make because Michael Jordan didn't want it made until he was ready for it to be made. And it exchanged hands many times, the ownership of that footage and who was going to produce that film. But we got to work on it without knowing we were working on it, right? Because we were just logging and doing what we were told without knowing what it would become beyond the 98 Bulls film, which they
Right,
did every year for every champion.
right. Amazing, amazing.
And speak of iconic media industry,
Yes, we talked
Netflix has announced that they've
net, net, net,
acquired Warner Brothers Discovery.
or that it's been approved. You know, the ink
Uh,
isn't dry yet, but everybody's talking about it like it is, and it's 82.7 billion or whatever it is. At least I don't think the ink is dry yet. I think it was an agreement, and they're still hammering it out.
well, yeah, that's going to be at least a year until we know whether or not the
Yeah,
FCC and the people who have to get involved with actually approving the deal.
yeah, it's big news. My, again, being in media and talking about media, my LinkedIn feed is full of lots of people talking about it. Lots of varying opinions. A lot of AI overview that's saying a lot of the same stuff about it. Um,
This is saying that the FCC, because it's a streaming deal and not an over-the-air acquisition, is not involved in approving
but
the
the
acquisition.
FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, still has to approve the merger and ensure that there's no, monopoly. And
Mm.
again, given the players, it's highly likely that nothing's going to happen other than the deal going through. But you have the largest streaming player acquiring a very large library and a collection of IP that's hugely valuable and could be could be leveraged in new and different ways. And we talked about with Ken Gibbs. Distribution becomes a new way of doing things, and so their capacity, Netflix capacity to distribute to a broad audience, becomes important. And then from a subscriber churn perspective, I suppose the idea would be that the larger content library will reduce churn, and the IP acquisition will enable them to create new and more interesting shows in a production methodology that they have with data to be able to, create many more, DC Comics films in ways that'll be interesting and relevant to their core audiences. And then over time, one might predict that with AI production and data and analytics, you can have the Rob Haddad, DC Comics show made specially for an audience of one.
The remix.
Yeah, I mean, you could, as you start to do these thought experiments, it becomes very interesting. Um, it's like pulling on the thread on the sweater and watching it unravel. But there are these conceptually very interesting things that can happen with media, and a large acquisition like this is just the beginning. On the other side, I think again foreshadow a little bit later. I think you're going to tell us about something we need to read, and
I think it's relevant right now. In fact, who's been posting a lot about Netflix and Warner Brothers is Marc Randolph, who's co-founder of Netflix, and he always does such a great job of sharing his thoughts on LinkedIn, or his team does. It feels like it's from Marc, but that's okay,
Yeah,
whether it is or not.
yeah.
And his post from a day ago is this: 29 years ago, I debated whether I could afford to spend $50,000 on the domain name I really wanted for Netflix, which was replay.com. I decided that was crazy money. Netflix it was. To hear now that they can afford to pay $70 billion for something is pretty mind blowing. HBO were the proprietary content pioneers. We always looked up to them. Who would have thunk?
Amazing.
Another post after that, he actually wanted Netflix, Flicks, as the name of the company, but that wasn't that wasn't available.
That's a great story on branding as well, right? We then, the name or word Netflix meant nothing when they started the company. And obviously, it was Marc Randolph's third choice, or maybe even further down the list. But here we are, and it's an iconic company with an iconic brand with people that would love to work there because the word and the brand have been imbued with this energy because of their executional excellence, because of the way that they were able to go to market. I mean, people forget they used to mail you DVDs. I used to tell a case study about, Netflix didn't invent the post office, they just invented a better way to use it. And they did. They took stuff that existed. The mail was existing, and mail actually had a special designation for media to send media around, like books and magazines. And so they used that in a way, and then they helped the post office with barcodes and scanners, ensure that their stuff was coming and going in the right order, and able to get, folks like myself a DVD in the mail. So I didn't even have to go out to Blockbuster and sit around and argue with my family over what we were going to watch. And
So he has a great founder's story in which he was commuting to work with Reed Hastings. They were both at the same company together. You should go seek it out. But ultimately, what happened was they thought, oh, this video rental process stinks, but we can't ship VHS tapes.
right.
And so it wasn't until Reed came back and said, have you seen this? And he shows Marc a DVD. And they went to the post office immediately, put it in an envelope, and mailed it to themselves. And were like, that was easy.
Yeah.
That was essentially there's much more to it. It's
Minimum viable product, MVP.
amazing.
I mean,
Amazing.
and it
Yeah.
doesn't.
He
It
talks
doesn't.
about pressure testing, right? Can you test your idea?
Yeah. Yeah. And even from those early days with the name Netflix, it was the precursor, and you could see in their future they were thinking big that eventually this would not be net to send, but net to stream, or at least that's what we envisioned when we first saw it. Because I was working in the games business at the time, and you could see, streaming for content was something that was relevant to us. Yeah, I mean, think about that. Somebody else, I want to read you something. Somebody posted. I'm gonna actually have to make it up. I don't have it in front of me, but somebody posted about the merger, something to the effect of Blockbuster didn't buy or why didn't Blockbuster buy a $70 billion company, or why didn't Blockbuster buy Warner Brothers Discovery for $70 billion? But yeah, there is their capacity to execute flawlessly, their capacity to understand their consumer, their capacity to deliver, and their capacity to build a brand that was relevant is all over the internet at the moment. And Marc Randolph is, accidentally created a fantastic brand, and sometimes it's better to be lucky than good.
For sure. It's funny that you mentioned Blockbuster and all of this because they did famously turn down the opportunity to acquire Netflix.
Yeah,
Oh boy.
yeah, yeah,
What a world. What a world.
absolutely. Um, so, Rob, I think that another thing in media, okay, it's been a week of media. I and my family, because I have two teens, always look forward to Spotify Wrapped. And it is a genius marketing execution in my mind because it's a life cycle marketing play, right? It's going to your existing customers, and instead of taking something that might be, some people sometimes view stuff like this as a potential negative. Oh my God, what if I send them this thing and it says they've only listened to 5 hours of music? They might churn. And so subscription-based companies have this like aversion to telling people how much or how little you might be using their product. And yet here it is that they create this event. It's now an event. It was genius when I first saw it. I remember when I first saw it, I was just like, oh my God, this is so good. And then it's now an event where people are waiting for it. There are people that have copied the concept. And, year-end wrap-ups are not necessarily new, right? We were doing year-end wrap-ups before Spotify Wrapped came out to my company. Like we do a company meeting and we talk about what happened over the year. It was very much like Spotify Wrapped. In fact, we just didn't coordinate it quite the same way. We certainly didn't have scale and distribution. My company is small. But the capacity and the feature ads that they continue to do to iterate, like the listening age, and then my teen daughter was like, I'm 68, which is younger than my listening age, and I'm like, I've done a good job.
Mine was 71. And by the way, if you look at my top 100 songs, not one of them is from an artist that's from the 70s. I did listen to a lot of Jackson Browne and James Taylor this year and Carole King, but none of them made the top 100 songs. Now, my listening age is not 22, to be fair. A lot of Wilco, a lot of Bon Iver, but I also listen to a lot of Olivia Rodrigo. He's not 71 anyway.
You've proven my point because here we are talking about Spotify willingly and doing so as users who then become promoters because we're telling our friends about the fact that we got this thing, or even if we're saying it in a way that's arguing. This is called word of mouth. And word of mouth is created and generated by great, again, we talk flawless execution. It took an idea, they had all this data, they aggregated the data in a way that was meaningful to me, the end user, and also something I could compare to you as the end user, or just tell my friends about. I am in the 0.8% of listeners of Bruce Springsteen.
Whoa, is that right?
Whoa! On
Wow. Did you
Spotify.
see the movie?
I have not seen the movie.
Me neither.
I've lived it. I watched him grow up. Ish.
Wow. Ish indeed. I think he was born in 1948, Munir.
Well, 1980 and born in the USA, we were salient and sentient humans, and
To be fair, it was the first commercial purchase I made as a 9-year-old. I bought Bruce Springsteen from 1975 to 1985, $24, which
oh
I was like, wow, that's a big investment.
yeah,
And my conflict was, or my decision or my opportunity, do I buy the cassette box tape or do I buy the vinyl box tape? And I went with cassette because you could play in the car.
yeah. There you go. Portability matters.
Portability. I think I was in the 0.02% of Bon Iver listeners.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying. 53,000 minutes listened. I don't know where that ranks. Is that a lot? They didn't
You're
tell me that.
well, I don't know that they're, this is the genius as well. Like, I don't know that they're going to tell you that that's a lot, but they're going to, now you're going to have me. I think,
You listen to way too much
yeah.
music.
Uh, I think my kid, I only had this year 28,000. I had
Oh
some of
wow.
my listening, split off, but I also have a lot of minutes on Duolingo, which has a Wrapped as well.
Oh, it does.
It does completely. I mean, again, completely copied from what the fine folks at Spotify put out there. But I am in the top like 0.1% of Duolingo users, which I posted on a social media platform. I don't know whether I'm proud or
I
embarrassed.
think I saw that. Yeah, that's I think that's pretty. I don't know. What does it matter? As long as you're happy.
Thanks, man.
Here,
Oh, there you go. Your
this
top artist.
you spent 4,422 minutes with Bon Iver, which makes you a top 0.02% global fan.
Wow.
I was committed to
Right.
his most recent album, which didn't make Pitchfork's top 50 albums of 2025. There must be some criteria that excluded Sable Fable from this list of top 50 that I was reading. Because I refuse to believe that's not in the top five of albums that was released in 2025.
Uh, you
But I
know,
was I was intent here. So speaking of the campaign, I was intent in having both Bon Iver and Sable Fable as my top Spotify artist and album,
right.
respectively, in Wrapped.
Hmm.
And that came out in April, and I was thinking about it.
Again, this is where great execution of product and great, like this is part of their, it's almost part of their business model, right? It's part of the product itself. And when the product itself or features of the product can become the marketing, you're winning. I mean, it's the fact that you were intentionally thinking about Wrapped when an album comes out. My daughter was the same way. She was telling me, she's like, yeah, I was like thinking about stuff. She actually went so far as to say, I started to listen to an artist on Apple Music to try to trick the algorithm into not thinking I listened to this artist as much as I do, and it didn't matter.
I, I will say last year,
It was
I was like,
Hamilton,
I
by the
can't.
way. Not that it was like
Okay. That's, I will say that's the other part of it is like, oh, I can't share this on, I can't let people know that I listen to this much Wilco or whatever it is. And I need to get some more Luther Vandross in there. You know what I'm saying? Like intentionality of what we listen to
yeah,
because of the perception of who we are and who we want to present
yeah,
ourselves to be.
yeah. Well, it's a fun thing. Um, it generates conversation, and it's become a cultural moment. And as we talked to Ken Gibbs about the capacity then for people to talk about something relevant and then share it willingly is marketing at its best. I mean, this is something that breaks through clutter, transcends platform, and allows them to continue to succeed. They are getting acquisitions of users because people want to participate in the Wrapped, situation. And that's amazing.
It reminds me of the recent conversation about the overuse of the word authenticity
Hmm.
and how I started our conversation today talking about practice. And I think part of marketing is leaning into the things that really emphasize who you want to be
Hmm.
and being able to practice that with the purpose of it reflecting who you want to be,
Yes.
not because you know it's going to deliver you a desired outcome.
Amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Great to see you.
Great to see you.
This was fun. It's always fun,
It's always fun.
if not disjointed.
Sometimes, these things work themselves out. I can't wait for your intro next week.
Oh, forgot about it already.
Bye.
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.